This time, it only taken me 8 hours to successfully complete the track from Cameron Corner. Once again, seeing the hotel at the end of the long day's drive was a relief.
That's where I'm going right now, straight into the bottom.
I made my way to the campsite where I stayed the last time I was in this area. It was on the banks of the Cooper Creek where the saga of the Burke and Wills Expedition started to unfold.
Well, I'm at the Cooper now. At this camp spot. I had to cross the Cooper on the causeway. Everybody else seems to be camped on the other side, and I can now see why. It's a lot greener on the other side than what it is on this side. I don't know if they're having much luck with their meals over there, because I've got to share my first meal I've had for about 3 days, or first decent meal, shall I say, with thousands of flies. I don't know if I can actually get to the dig tree. There's a track on this side of the Cooper which finishes up next to the dig tree, but it's 86 kilometres long, and the problem with going the shorter way, which is only 50 odd kilometres, is that the creek at Nappamarri is pretty deep, and that stops anybody getting across, well, anybody with a vehicle like mine getting across. I'll be throwing my swag down the bottom, down the lower part next to the river tonight, and I'm just waiting until it gets dark, because it was a long trip up here. I think I left Innamincka, sorry, don't even know where I am again. I think I left Tibooburra about 9 o'clock, and I got up here just on 4 o'clock. It wasn't too bad, most of it, but the first part of the Straslaki track had me worried for quite some time because of the deep sand. But the Subaru handled it with no problems, and I must admit at that particular point I didn't really know what the Subaru could handle, but now I know. Well, I know to the extent that I didn't get bogged anywhere. I'm going to get back to eat this thing before the blooming flies finish it off for me.
Once the sun left the sky, the flies left too. They were replaced by nocturnal insects that were drawn to my camp light. Overhead, the birds squabbled in the branches. Last night, my attempt to sleep under the stars lasted about 5 minutes before the mosquitoes moved in and forced me to put the tent up. Some of the little buggers must have followed me in, and their buzzing kept me awake for a while. That morning, the unmistakable sound of screeching glass could be heard. Birds of prey circled overhead. I hoped it wasn't a bad omen. The sun had yet put any heat to the day as I made myself a cup of tea. When it was ready, I retreated back to the protection of the tent to avoid the flies. Outside the tent, crows competed for scraps of food with a dingo. Cooper Creek's significance for the Aboriginal people spans thousands of years, with its watercourse providing a reliable source of fresh water and abundant food. The area's Aboriginal history also includes significant contacts with explorers. Cooper Creek was named by Captain James Stewart on the 13th of October 1845 when he crossed the watercourse at approximately 24 kilometres west of the current Innamincka township. The water at the time was very low, hence the use of the term creek rather than river. Many sources believe that the name Innamincka comes from two Aboriginal words meaning your shelter or your home. I made my way across the Cooper via the causeway just north of town to investigate the local points of interest. I spent a few hours exploring the area, including an old cemetery.
We come to another graveyard. This one's at Innamincka. There's a couple of interesting graves just over yonder. I'll just show you those in a couple of seconds. One about somebody drowning in the Cooper. It was a few years old too.
As the 20th century advanced, long periods of drought hit the sheep stations in the area, and they incurred severe stock losses, resulting in sheep production being discontinued. The cattlemen only fared marginally better, but as conditions worsened, even they had to put their properties up for sale. Floods inundated the area again in 1908. This time, it was the original Innamincka homestead that was washed away.
Well, getting to the dig tree has really made my trip. This is the highlight of my trip, actually finding a tree. A tree with a lot of history.